I sort of come down to the view that the positive transformations that AI can bring will outweigh the negatives, and that's a good thing. I've said often, if only every New Zealander would spend a day just learning how to write agents, how to code, how to do analytic, New Zealand would rule the world in terms of productivity and innovation and creativity.
Kia ora, I'm Troy, HERA's Chief Executive, and welcome to Stirring the Pot. Thanks for connecting. If you're new, here's what you can expect. We're going to be talking the tough stuff, the things that keep us middle minds up at night. There are many challenges facing our industry and equally many opinions on how we should tackle them. Stirring the Pot provides a facilitated forum to discuss and challenge these viewpoints.
So let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. Today we're having a kōrero with Matt Ensor, an AI strategist and thought leader who's leading the charge on how artificial intelligence can transform the construction and engineering industries.
Matt, can you give us an introduction to yourself and what you do in relation to AI?
Well, I've been an engineer since the 80s and spent most of my time in transport. And then in 2018, while I was working at Beca, part of my role was to work out, what were the new services that Beca could offer. And so I looked around and came up with a few, but one that sort of caught my eye was what's now called generative AI. And I said to my boss at the time, I said, this could really affect our business. This is going to be amazing technology. We need to get ahead of what's going on. And so luckily for me and perhaps for Beca, my boss said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I went to Callaghan, and Callaghan had a scheme where I could hire students on their school holidays. So I hired 8. I thought, this is fantastic. And so for about 10 weeks or 8 weeks, we beavered away on AI. And it's sort of through that early investigations that I decided, actually, I didn't want to be an engineer anymore. I wanted to work in this new field of, as I say, what's become generative AI.
Just recently, you have given AI governance training to the HERA board. What do you think governors need to know about AI? Boards
need to be focused on sort of the sustainability of their organisations. And what I say to them is, look, this is all this technology coming, and your executive may well be focused on day-to-day business and meeting KPIs and objectives and current contracts and things like that. So someone has to be thinking about how their market might change. Boards often think about risks, reputational risks and things like that. And what I say to them is, actually, you need to sort of move to the next stage of focusing a bit more on opportunities that AI might bring. It's interesting, I say to boards, look, one of the things you should be looking at is how AI is being piloted in the organisation. And often there's a bit of pushback on that. It's like, well, isn't that the executive's job? And I say, well, not really, because what needs to happen is that AI pilots, AI technology that comes into the business needs to be entirely aligned with board strategy. It's not just something to make your emails better. It needs to be focused on what's important for the organisation. And so I talked to them a lot about that and kind of the skills they might need to bring onto their board, and also how they might do monitoring of how AI is taking off in their business.
Mm-hmm. We have definitely heard some comments from members that there's kind of a perception that using AI is like cheating, and that people's productivity is kind of impacted by using it in a negative way rather than a positive way. I was really captivated by the graph that you show around AI usage and the competency that brings to individuals and teams. Can you run us through that green coloured graph?
Yeah, it's a graph I use pretty much in every presentation I have. It was done by BCG back in 2023, and it stood the test of time. And what it shows is that the people who benefit most from using AI are people that have below average levels of skills, knowledge and experience in that particular area. So it's really good to raise the performance of an organisation by raising the abilities and performance of the younger or more junior parts of the firm. But what I also find is that people who perhaps in my stage of my career have had 30 years of learning what they do typically don't want to use AI, because they say, well, I know what I'm doing. Why would I use AI? It makes stuff up. But what we see is it's sort of the symbiosis of the two. So you have people who are using AI, and then you have the the wise old eggs that know when AI is correct and when it's not. You still need that sort of verification process. But it's a very interesting dynamic with AI in that, if you're the dominant player in your market, and you may well have been for a long time because of skills, knowledge and experience, you may well find smaller organisations who are using AI can suddenly start to compete with you when they didn't used to be able to.
And at an individual level too, that maybe your skills and experience is catch-upable by people using AI. Yes, and to maintain your differentiation, you need to start using the AI too.
Yeah, or at least be part of a team that's using AI. Not everyone has to, get up to speed with the various tools.
Mm-hmm. What are some cool things happening in AI that would be relevant to construction?
Yeah, so construction's always been quite difficult to integrate AI into, and that's because of, or generative AI, I should say, and that's because generative AI is quite creative, and so it will give you different answers every time. And for design work, that's not great. But what's happening is that AI now finally is getting good at mathematics. It's getting good at being more precise, and with the release of the new, what we call agentic AI, which is the ability for it to reason and not just give you an answer straight up, but work through steps. Suddenly now it's becoming far more capable of understanding the complexities of construction programs. In fact, some of the things that have been called AI aren't really AI at all. It's not making decisions, it's just automating things. I think the construction industry is actually on the cusp now of being able to integrate AI into what they do, generative AI. And we've seen some examples of that around health and safety, around construction programming, and those sorts of things. I think the most difficult thing I've seen for AI is actually to generate designs. And this is a feature of generative AI. It's much better at reviewing designs than it is generating them. So I still think, and I know that AutoCAD and Bentley and others are frantically trying to get it to create designs, but even they haven't been successful. But the ability to review a construction plan against a construction standard now, I think that's arrived, and I think that will hopefully improve the productivity of sort of on-site engineering.
We just did an awesome practical session in the training that you gave to HERA today, where we were developing our own apps and our own agents. And I saw quite a few people doing assessments against building codes, for example. I did one where I created an agent that could do a literature review. It was amazing to see how practically we could apply the knowledge that you were giving to us in the training very quickly to basically automate things that's taking us hours and days to do. How aware do you think people are that things are so readily available already?
Yeah, almost entirely unaware. And I think part of that is because AI is moving so quickly, people have kind of got tired by the hype of, and it can do this now, it can do this now. And so when you get genuine jumps in capability like we did in January this year and again in March, real generational changes in capability, it doesn't even make the media. I've said often, if only every New Zealander would spend a day just learning how to write agents, how to code, how to do analytics and stuff, I guess, more relevant to their lives. If only everyone spent a day, New Zealand would rule the world in terms of productivity and innovation and creativity. It's just that with some reason, AI you just need someone to show it to you. It's just taking that next step.
I really love the quote in your presentation, which was something along the lines of the future of work is already here, but we just don't realise it. The possibilities for AI, where do you think it's headed? Of course, you can't know for sure, but what are the indications?
Some well-known people say, look, the future's not written, so whatever you say could be possible. I think I sort of come down to the view that the positive transformations that AI can bring will outweigh the negatives, and that's a good thing. The way humans live their lives, I really don't think AI is going to take over, because we just rely so much on trust and authenticity and familiarity and connections and those sorts of things, that you just can't replace that side of business with AI. So you might be able to have some really cool agents that can do things far more quickly and at a higher quality, but it's hard to see agents running firms, running organisations. I just don't think people would trust trust the AI to do that.
Mm-hmm. Recently, Professor Robert Moore from University of Auckland and I ran a roundtable at NZIOB's Digicom, and our roundtable was about AI for verification and certification for building consenting. And we were going to focus our conversations around trust, because we thought, okay, we need to understand what would it take for, professionals to have trust in an AI model. We were surprised that of the three tables that we ran, everyone said they would trust an AI model more than a human. So I think even the trust issues with AI are kind of starting to dissolve now in those applications where, there is a bit of, I don't want to say a lack of objectivity, but where there's a little bit of interpretation that can happen and variability between human assessments. There does seem to be a lot more confidence in AI. What would you say to businesses out there who might be HERA members in terms of what they need to be doing to think and prepare for AI?
Yeah. So one of the things I say to organisations is you need to get up to date with what the capabilities of AI are. So many organisations are basing, the return on investment on the technology that was here 6 months ago. And I say to people who go to my courses, just forget about last year's AI, because this year's AI is just so different, so much more powerful and so much more intelligent, I suppose you could say. So the first thing is to get up to speed with it. I say to organisations, just run small pilots. So don't try and roll out something to 50 people or 100 people. Just get a pilot of half a dozen or a dozen people and get them to use it to its full extent, because people still think, people will learn from other people who are using it within the organisation. And so if it is good, if it is useful, then my observation is other people in the firm will say, well, can I have a licence? Can I have a licence? Can I have a licence? And sort of grow it that way. I've never seen everyone's got a Copilot licence. I've never seen that work. It's like giving a calculator to a maths class. They'll just sort of look at it and not learn anything about maths.
So there you go. Thanks for joining our conversation with Matt today. If you'd like to connect more with him, you'll find his details in the show notes. From digital humans to real-world AI strategies, Matt's work shows that the future isn't some far-off concept. It's already shaping how we build, collaborate, and think. As our sector steps into a new era, embracing tools like AI isn't just smart, it's essential for staying relevant, resilient, and ready for what's next. Food for thought till we see you next time. So hit subscribe, and if you like what you heard today, please like, review, or share with any metal minds you know. Let's spread the word. At HERA, we're exploring exactly that through our research into Industry X.0, helping Aotearoa New Zealand's construction and engineering sectors understand what's coming, what's possible, and how to get future ready. You'll find details in the show notes.